The unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriads. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. So I'm going to continue with the Noble Eightfold Path. I thought I would finish it today, but however, I didn't get all that far. And this is going to be a fairly short talk, and I'm going to continue with the Noble Eightfold Path tomorrow. So I'm going to start with the second path group, which is concentration, and consists of right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation. The Buddha describes right effort in this way. Hear, monks, a monk generates desire for the non-arising of unarisen, wholesome states. He makes an effort, arouses energy, applies his mind, and strives. He generates desire for the abandoning of arisen, unwholesome states. He generates desire for the arising of unarisen, wholesome states. He generates desire for the continuation of arisen, wholesome states, for their non-decline, increase, expansion, and fulfillment by development. He makes an effort, arouses energy, applies his mind, and strives. So the Buddha teaches that right effort is the effort to abandon unwholesome states and to encourage wholesome states. And this may not be the way that we have thought in terms of right effort. And I'll try to explain what this means to me. We try in meditation to watch our thoughts and feelings arise and pass without getting involved in them. We're making the effort to be mindful and alert. Some thoughts arise and pass more easily than others, and some seem to have a more sticking quality that seems to pull us into getting involved with them, and yet we don't have to. Feelings are a bit more complicated. They don't always go so quickly, but they can. Some negative thoughts can have more of a sticking quality for me. Judgmental thoughts about myself and others. All the many critical thoughts. People have sometimes asked me how they can stop being so judgmental. And I've told them that for me it's a moment-by-moment effort to see the judgmental thought arise and watch it go without going with it. And if we're used to being judgmental and going with it, it can be kind of hard to let go of that habit. One time when I was on retreat at our Compassionate Friend Hermitage, I made a determined effort to do this with every judgmental, critical thought that arose. There was one monk that I felt especially critical about at that time. But every time the criticism arose, I just let it go. And when I returned to the Abbey after my retreat, I found that in place of the critical thoughts about this monk, there were thoughts arising from a deeper place, and they were thoughts of loving kindness and compassion. These are two of the 4 Brahma Viharas, the other 2 being sympathetic joy and equanimity. And they arise naturally from Buddha nature when we let go of the negative thoughts. And this is how it has worked for me. When I make the effort to let go, then what's already there, what's part of my true nature, arises naturally of itself. And there are also ways of cultivating them, but I'm not going to go into that so much during this talk. So this is the abandoning of arisen unwholesome states and the encouraging of unarisen wholesome states. So then I had to look at what does the encouraging of the unarisen, unwholesome states not to arise mean, if you can understand that. It's making the effort to live by the precepts helps with this, and also trusting in the Dharma, what the Buddha teaches, what he taught, in what your intuition, your Buddha nature is telling you, and not in what your mind is telling you. Here's an example. I trust in the Dharma, but I also believe that I am really an inadequate, worthless human being who is uncompassionate, etc., when my mind and emotions are telling me that. Does that sound like a contradiction? Well, yes, it is. If you trust in the Dharma, then what your mind and feelings are telling you are not the true reality. The Dharma teaches us that thoughts and feelings are impermanent, are not self, are not who we are. They are just thoughts and feelings, old karmic conditioning. You can put your trust in the Dharma to the test by simply being with whatever thoughts, feelings, opinions, views are arising until they go, without getting caught up with them, and see what happens. I find when I believe in the inadequacy or whatever is arising, when I give it reality in life, then my thoughts and speech and actions are affected by that. And this can lead to the arising of unwholesome states and the continuation of unwholesome states, that which creates more suffering. And I see myself doing this at times. You know, when those feelings come on strong, it's hard not to believe in them. They have a real punch to them. Sometimes if we believe them for a long time, they just get in there. It's Mara. And, we can't push them away, but we can be with them compassionately until they go of themselves. Making the effort to be kind to people, whether we feel like it or not. Not giving in to the self that wants to react in a situation that is difficult. This all takes effort. And it's kind of changing the course of karma. Because when we continue to react in the same way, that reinforces that karma and that belief that this is what we're like. But when we can make the real effort to refrain and control ourselves, we are actually cleansing that karma. So it's really worth making the effort. Now this doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you are encouraging yourself to awaken to what is real and true within yourself. When jealousy, envy towards another person arises, if you can just be with that without giving energy or reality to it. This is another of the Brahma Viharas. Sympathetic joy can take its place. The arising of sympathetic joy feels good because we see our interconnectedness with other beings and we're happy for them. And with compassion, we also sense our interconnectedness with other beings. After the tragedy of 9/11, we saw a documentary film here where they interviewed different spiritual leaders about their reaction to this event. And I can't remember which one of them said, but, to see that much suffering, he was right across the street. So I don't want to go into the details, but he could see a lot that was happening. And, he could see people jumping off the buildings, and really suffering deeply. And his heart just opened to them. He felt the interconnectedness of all beings through his compassion. And in one sense, that was a wonderful opening for this person in the midst of the deep suffering. Opening to our own suffering, if we open to it in a positive way, not wallowing in it, can also open our hearts to others' suffering. There's a way of suffering that is very focused on ourselves, that does not necessarily help. It helps to see our suffering in perspective so that we can open to what is truly real and know that the suffering, although it can be quite painful, is impermanent and only the result of karma. It's not who we truly are. This training does take effort. And effort runs through all the path factors. We need to make an effort to meditate and to be mindful. And meditation and mindfulness help us to keep the precepts, not only on an intellectual level, or possibly a more superficial level, but also on a deeper level where the precepts become your blood and bones, the lifeblood of the Buddhas and ancestors. Now, after thinking about and writing this, I ran across something similar in Ajahn Amaro's book, Small Boat, Great Mountain. And I like the way he says it, and it kind of reinforces what I said. So I'm going to read it to you. Two-way traffic. There are many structures that we come across in the Buddha's teaching, such as the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, that are talked about as specific practices we can develop. It's the same with the 7 factors of enlightenment. With effort, these states of heart and mind can be cultivated. But it's helpful to understand the whole picture. When the heart is completely enlightened and liberated, non-dual awareness, then the natural disposition of the heart is loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. These qualities naturally radiate forth when the heart is completely free. This is not something that I do. This is the innate disposition of the pure heart. It's the same with the factors of enlightenment: mindfulness, contemplation of reality, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. These are intrinsic qualities of the liberated mind, of the awakened and enlightened heart. They are the immanent manifestations of that transcendent reality. Or take the 5 precepts. When the heart is completely liberated, it's impossible to deliberately harm another being. It's impossible to act acquisitively. It's impossible to take advantage of another being sexually or use your sense world indulgently. I'm sorry, I can't use your sense world. Indulgently. Okay. It is simply impossible. You can't lie or use speech in a harmful or deceitful way. It's as if the force of spiritual gravity won't allow it. There's nothing there that could cause you to bend the truth. When we say, I will now practice loving kindness, or I will develop compassion, or I will keep the 5 precepts, we overtly take that particular quality as a practice. In fact, what we are really doing is aligning the conditions of our dualistic mind with the reality of our own nature. We are helping the conditioned be resonant, harmonious with the unconditioned. And through that resonance, that synchrony, there is a spaciousness between conditions that opens up through which the unconditioned is realized. By practicing the 7 factors of enlightenment, or the Brahma Viharas, we set the conditions so the gap is right there. What's outside in terms of the conditioned is completely attuned to what is inside. It's a practice and process that works both ways. As we practice loving kindness, our heart automatically comes into accord with reality, and we feel good. And when our heart is awakened to reality, it automatically functions with loving kindness, or with one of the other Brahma Viharas. It's like two-way traffic on a highway between the conditioned and the unconditioned. There are the intrinsic qualities that come forth and the practices that lead in. We get the strings in tune that we line up our behaviors and attitudes outside with what is already the case inside. Goodness feels good because the attitude resonates with reality. Lying and harming feel bad because they are dissonant with that reality of what we are. It's as simple as that. The Buddha said the Brahma Viharas are not transcendent qualities. They are a peaceful and a beautiful abiding. By doing these kinds of practices, we create an alignment so that things match up. The conditions are set so that the gap is visible and very close. Then as soon as the gap opens, boom, it's right there in alignment. And in that moment, the heart is free. So, to go on to the next factor, which is right mindfulness. I have always understood right mindfulness as trying to be present and aware in whatever I am doing, not getting involved in my thoughts and feelings, bringing my mind back to the present moment when it wanders, and not getting sucked into what I am doing, where I actually lose my awareness and am totally focused on that. And this is what I try to do. I'm not always able to do it. I find especially with computer work that I can get sucked in. And I noticed, especially something I like I work on the yearly calendar, and it's fun, trying to get everything to fit and putting pictures in and stuff. And I get sucked into it. And before I know it, I'm not really mindful. I'm just lost in what I'm doing. So that isn't what we're talking about when we talk about mindfulness. It's being aware and doing the best we can without actually getting so focused on it that we lose our awareness. I also find it's hard to happen when I'm just washing the dishes, or drying the dishes is what I generally do. Or doing something simple like that, but I'm sure it can happen. But in these cases, what tends to happen is that our mind starts wandering, that it just doesn't seem like enough to just be washing the dishes. And so our mind gets involved in other things. So now we have to make the effort to just bring ourselves back to drying the dishes, or whatever we're doing, and being aware of all the opinions and ideas arise in just some simple acts. So mindfulness, within mindfulness, let's see. And I talked more about being mindful and the resting in awareness in some of my earlier talks, so I'm not going to get into that now. When we're mindful, we can notice when we're getting annoyed or about to say something that we will later regret, and we can make the effort to restrain ourselves. It's a great opportunity to see what our mind is doing and notice how you react how your koan arises in daily life. And you have the opportunity to not fuel the fire. And I'd like to remind you and myself that you don't need to squelch or judge your reactions. You only need to refrain from acting on them in some way. And this includes thinking, speech, and actions. Regarding right effort, the self can be lazy and only want to do what comes easily. But don't be fooled by this. Your heart wants you to do what needs to be done so that you can know and be one with your true nature. And I have found this to be true for myself. When the mind is feeling lazy and doesn't want to do something, and I do it anyway, I feel really a whole lot better. So it's just the mind fooling us, really. The Buddha says in regards to right effort, and I mentioned this earlier, he makes an effort, arouses energy, applies his mind, and strives. Now, this is what I've always thought of as right mindfulness. And the Buddha talks about it in a different way. This is what he says. A bhikkhu should abide contemplating a body as a body. Ardent, fully aware. These are called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Ardent, fully aware, and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Or he should abide contemplating feelings as feelings. Or he should abide contemplating consciousness as consciousness. Or he should abide contemplating mental objects as mental objects. And Great Master Dogen talks about this in one of his discourses, which is called the 37 Methods of Training for Enlightenment. I think that's it. And he talks about it in this way. First, reflecting on the impurity of the body. Second, reflecting on how what our senses perceive leads to suffering. Third, reflecting on the impermanence of our mental functions. And fourth, reflecting on how all thoughts and things are devoid of a permanent self. Now, I was going to be talking more about this today, but I found that this is something I really need to meditate with, and I wasn't ready today to talk about it in a good way. So I'm going to leave that for tomorrow, and I'm going to be talking about the rest of the path factors tomorrow as well. But I would like to leave you with a nice thought, and I'm going to read you the Metta Sutra, the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading outwards to to the skies, and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Homage to all the Buddhas in all worlds. Homage to all the Bodhisattvas in all worlds. Homage to the Scripture of great wisdom.